started. Okay, she's got it on.
Great. Okay. Welcome, everybody. Sorry, Jerry, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I was just double checking, Jen. I don't believe we have 5 parent representatives.
We have Laura, Maria, and Alex. Oh, so parent, you're right.
Correct.
Do we have to have 5? Yeah, you're right. We do need 5 parents.
5
you're
parent
right.
reps.
Yeah. Okay, then we will hold for a couple of minutes until we
wait,
have
Jordan just joined.
Okay, perfect. Great. All right. Thank you, everyone, for joining this evening for our May CPIC meeting. In case you've just logged on, Nancy has indicated that there are some issues with live streaming this evening through the board office, so we will be recording the meeting and posting it afterwards. Nancy, if you could please lead us in the opening prayer.
I will. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I hope everyone's doing well. Please join me in the sign of our faith. In the name of the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit. Amen. For our families, Lord God, we give you all the members of our Halton Catholic District School Board families. You know them so well and love them all. We ask that you cover our families with a rainbow of hope. Hope that draws us together to work on our differences. Hope that helps us to celebrate together and care for one another. Hope that rides like a banner in our lives and watches over us wherever we go. Hope that overcomes adversity and gathers strength to overcome. Hope that guides us and gives us vision for our future alone and together. Hope filled with love. Hope that's fueled in faith. Hope that breathes peace. May our families live in you underneath your promises. We ask this in Jesus' name. Amen. In the name of the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit. Amen. And Andrea, if you could please play the land acknowledgement.
Halton, as we know it today,
is rich in the history and modern traditions
of many First Nations and the Métis,
from the lands of the Anishinaabe
to the Attawandaron,
the Haudenosaunee,
and the Métis.
These lands surrounding the Great Lakes
are steeped in Indigenous history.
As we gather today
on these treaty lands,
our Catholic social teachings
call us in solidarity
with our Indigenous brothers and sisters
to honor and respect
the 4 directions:
lands,
waters, plants,
animals, and ancestors
that walked before us.
All these wonderful elements of creation exist,
gifted to us by our Creator God.
We acknowledge and thank
the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation
for being stewards of this traditional territory.
Thank you very much, Andrea. Before we get started, if we could have somebody make a motion to approve tonight's agenda.
I'll move it, Jennifer. It's Maria.
Thanks, Maria. Can we have a seconder, please?
It's Laura. I second it.
Thanks, Laura. And the minutes from our last meeting from April were attached to the agenda today. I hope you've all had a chance to review them, and I need someone to make a motion to approve those minutes and someone to second them, please.
Sorry, Jen, I actually had a change. So do you want
that
now?
Yep, please do.
So,
yep.
For item 6.1, it says duty to report, advisory authority of so this is in the minutes.
Okay.
Advisory authority of school councils and duty to report. It should actually be duty to respond.
Okay.
It was actually incorrect in the agenda last time, but I didn't catch it. But when I forwarded it, it was entitled duty to respond, and that's actually what's referenced in the regulation. So it should change in the title and also at the end where it says that the motion was adopted. So it's in the two places.
Perfect. Thank you very much. So with that change, can I have somebody make a motion to approve the minutes, please?
I can move to approve with that
Great.
change.
Thanks, Maria. And a seconder, please.
It's Jerry. I'll second it.
Thanks, Jerry. All right, great. Thanks, Maria. We will make sure that change gets made before those minutes are posted online. And we'll move along to the agenda to our board update. Nancy.
Thanks, Jen. And I'm pleased to share with you an update from senior staff. So today was a wonderful day within our Halta Catholic community. We were able to participate in the blessing and dedication of St. Nicholas School. For those of you who don't know where St. Nicholas is in South Oakville. It's a unique situation there because St. Nicholas is one of the schools. It's a new school, but it's the amalgamation of two schools in South Oakville. So the former St. James and St. Joseph school communities, they came together in 2018, 2019. But because of COVID, we're not able to have its blessed dedication until now, and they wanted it to be in person. So we had Bishop Crosby together with the priests from St. James and St. Dominic's at the school today to do a wonderful blessed and dedication. We had representation from the Halton Region Chair, Mr. Carr, and the Mayor of Oakville was there, along with many representatives from senior staff, parents, and trustees. So thank you everyone for a wonderful event and a wonderful way to start this week. We are slowly returning to do many things in the traditional way at our school, and the experience have been wonderful both in our elementary and our secondary school settings. We do continue to monitor our student and staff attendance and report daily to the Ministry of Education, and this will continue until the end of the school year. In terms of COVID protocols, all of our classrooms and learning spaces have HEPA filters at this time, as provided by the Ministry of Education. It is student and staff choice if they want to wear a mask in our indoor settings at this time. And schools are continuing to inform parents if they are informed of a positive COVID case in a classroom. Our traditional vaccine programs through Halton Region Public Health have resumed with our grade 7 and 8 immunization program, and consents for this have been sent to parents, and parents must sign those forms and return them to the school to participate in an in-school vaccination program at the school. Throughout the first week of May, we celebrated Catholic Education Week, renewing, restoring, and rebuilding our communities together. It was wonderful to see so many parents in our schools for the first time in 2 years engaged in many school activities together with their children. And I hope many of our CPIC members were able to attend some of the events that were taking place. Many of our schools have had their first communion and confirmation celebrations with their local parishes, and our parish priests are once again visiting in our schools and welcoming the schools into the parishes for school masses. So that started during Catholic Education Week. That's many of the schools have just got into the churches for the first time. At this time, we are working on school organizations for September. In elementary, we're identifying the number of classes in each school. At the secondary level, we're identifying the number of course sections that will be offered. We are planning for a traditional classroom in terms of student-teacher ratios, as we did pre-pandemic, with the average for kindergarten in grade 4 to 8 at 24.5. So that's an average across all our grades, and 20 for grade 1 to 3. And at the secondary level, the average is 23.1. Elementary parents at St. Clair of CC will be sent an additional survey on May 23rd for the parents to confirm their child's placement if they want to continue with a virtual placement for September. A survey has also been sent to our secondary parents so parents can identify if their high school student will be participating in remote learning. It will not be hybrid the way we've had it for the last 2 years. It will be a remote learning environment similar to our elementary environment with 225 minutes of synchronous program each day. Our new kindergarten parents have had an opportunity to participate in the kindergarten orientation sessions and visit in schools in preparation for September. And many of those have already taken place or will take place before the end of May. It's also wonderful to see so many extracurricular activities up and running in our schools, be it athletics, arts, clubs. There's so many different activities taking place every day, and it's wonderful to see how many students are involved in the various activities. All of our schools are preparing for in-person graduation liturgies and ceremonies for the end of June. And many of our grade 8 classes all have a year-end trip. It's a day trip of some sort that's taking place as a class. So we're excited that we're able to do that together with each of the schools. We do have tutoring programs being offered at both the secondary and elementary setting throughout May and June. And if your child is participating in something like this, you have been communicated by the school to parents. For summer school this summer at the secondary level, there will be e-learning opportunities for all our secondary students to participate. For elementary, Camp Summerland, which we have offered for many years, will continue to be an in-person opportunity for students to attend. And once again, that's a program where schools identify students who would participate, who are good candidates for that program from grade 5 to 8. And then parents have to support that enrollment and participate in the registration process for that. There will be some virtual learning opportunities for students who are part of our special education program throughout July. So there will be virtual opportunities for them. Together with our Catholic school councils, many are planning some year-end activities. So we're hearing about some schools having their barbecue or community event taking place in June or planning for September. So we're back to following the guidelines that we have set for different events like that. And schools are asked just to follow the guidelines that are in the best interest of all school communities and for everyone's safety. As you all know, that we had our CPIC elections for the positions for CPIC that were open for September. We had 2 Burlington positions. There was 13 nominees that came forward, and it was voted by 11 schools, and so the 2 positions have been filled. In Oakville, there was 2 positions. We had 10 nominees come forward. We only heard back from 8 of the schools in Oakville. There was 1 clear successful candidate, but we did have to do a tiebreaker for the second candidate, and that was confirmed today at 12 o'clock. So all 2 positions are filled there. There was 2 positions in North Halton. There was 9 nominees, and we heard back from the 9 Catholic school councils. So all of the positions have been filled. Andrea is confirming with all the successful candidates, and the candidates will be invited to participate in the council chairs meeting on May 25th, so next week, and we'll introduce them at this time. Our program events are running well and are being reported back to my office as we have a Ministry of Education report that we have to complete once the funds have been dispersed. So we're really happy to see that all of those events that were planned early in the year have been filled. Questions that came up over the last little while, particularly with regards to the cafeteria service at 3 of our high schools. So Corpus Christi, St. Francis Xavier, and Notre Dame still do not have a functioning cafeteria service for the students. Our provider for that is Chartwell, so that all of our schools have Chartwell as the provider. Unfortunately, they have struggled with finding the labor force to run the cafeterias. Since we had heard from Catholic school councils and they came to Jen and Jerry through CPIC to advocate for this, Corpus Christi now has a fully running cafeteria, so they're able to recruit enough staff to run that cafeteria. But in our conversations with Chartwell, they will not be able to run Notre Dame and St. Francis Xavier for this school year. But they will have the cafeterias up and running with adequate staff for September. And that's what they have communicated to us. Are there any questions? Go ahead, Jerry.
Thanks, Nancy. Just on the tutoring services that are being offered, can you say a bit more about that? How did that process work in terms of identifying those that would be eligible for it, or I apologize, maybe I missed something. I should probably know. Yeah, can you touch on that a bit more?
So each of the schools, and some schools have had their own sort of tutoring support program running throughout the year, okay? But with the ministry money, because you probably heard about that, there was ministry money that's provided to school boards. So there's different ways. So there was, if the students were a candidate for maybe special education, it's a different type of tutoring that might have been offered through some of our online programs that we have a provider to provide it with. And then if there's schools where they identified students who, based on their diagnostic assessments of how they were progressing. If the school identified it as having a significant gap, then their names were put forward. But some of the schools put the names forward once they had communicated with the parents, so they understood what the model was going to look like, because some schools may not have had staff from that building who could provide it. Some schools are running it virtually, some schools it's in person, how they're doing it, and some schools may not have communicated just yet on what their model looks like with parents. So it's just been set up right now, Jerry. So there's going to be an opportunity for a spring tutoring program. There may be some in the summer that's available, and then there's going to be a fall program that's going to offer.
Okay, so there's more obviously to come. I mean,
Yes.
the funding the ministry's provided, has it all been allocated, earmarked, or otherwise spent?
No, because so the way the ministry funding is coming, so there's a portion of the money that's for spring, a portion for summer, a portion for the fall. And
Okay.
I see Director Daly's hand is up, so he may want to add some more detail to that. Thank you, Pat.
Sorry, thanks, Nancy. I was just going to say that's Nancy's bang on. The allocation's kind of coming in three different sections, spring, summer, and fall. So we're working through the spring allocation right now and planning for the tutoring supports we can offer both in the summer and then when we're back in September.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Director Daly. Maria, go ahead.
Hi. So at the March 22nd board meeting, there was a staff report with respect to the secondary school exam skills development, and it committed to providing resources, including a webinar, to parents and students by mid-April. So we're now in mid-May and nothing has been released. So I'm wondering what's happening and why it wasn't, it's been a month and why it hasn't been released yet. We're getting close to the end of the school year. So.
Thank you for that question, Maria. Maria, I will take that back. That is under the curriculum department. I know Superintendent Kroll has presented about the webinar and what's going to be offered to the students. So I will get back to you in terms of what the start date and when it is, or has it been communicated, and maybe you may not be aware, but it has been, but I will get back to you about that.
Okay, I did ask my student as well, and I've asked other parents, and no one seems to be aware of it. So, and I think as we get closer to the end of the school year, there's going to be less and less attention, especially with our graduating students who are just looking forward to celebrating their graduation now. But
I will get back to you, Maria, because I know that there's a plan, and so
okay.
I want to make sure you get that information. Okay.
Okay. Thanks.
Jen, go ahead.
Thanks, Nancy. I was just wondering about enrollment numbers for the board for next year.
So we are working on our enrollment. Our enrollment is down. Okay, so at the elementary level, right now we are sitting at about 21,854. I got those numbers today, which is it's down. Okay, it's down. We were down last year, but it's further down to where we're at right now. Okay. But we are taking registrations every day, so we're hopeful that, especially because our junior kindergarten and senior kindergarten enrollment is where we're off the most, that we'll start to see those numbers come back up. But we don't know if we'll get to the point where we were growing for so many years. It's not just a Halton Catholic scenario. Within the GTA, numbers are down across our GTA boards. Part of it is because our northern boards, so just like northern being like the Muskoka areas and that, enrollment's going up in those areas. So parents have either moved out or moved up there during this time of pandemic. We don't know if they'll be coming back, but other families are moving in. And even that, with all the new houses that are being purchased within Halton, that has been delayed as well. So hopefully we'll start to see those numbers come back. We are off in our secondary enrollment as well. It's not as high as we are in elementary, but we are off. I believe it's just under 500 off of what we've been in previous years.
Great, thanks. Any other questions for Superintendent Denolfo? Okay, thanks very much, Nancy.
There's one other thing I just wanted to address, was just around our plan for our final June CPIC meeting for this year. We are going to really encourage it that it's a face-to-face meeting here at the board office. So our June meeting will be a face-to-face meeting. And then our plan for the fall is to resume face-to-face meetings, but we will have that hybrid component because we wouldn't want anyone to not be able to participate if they weren't able to. So the plan is that our meetings will be, we will have face-to-face meetings, but we will offer it so that everybody can participate with that hybrid option. And as we get into the winter months and weather starts to change and people are traveling across the region, we can go back to virtual through those winter months and then go back to the face-to-face and hybrid model for the spring. So that's what our intentions are.
Miss Dina Beans.
That's what our intention is. And once we have our new CPIC group together, we plan out how we're going to deliver that and what it will look like for the fall.
Great. Thanks, Nancy. Looking forward to that.
No problem.
Okay, pass it along over to Marvin for our trustee update, please.
Thank you, Jan. Good evening, everybody. So let me present my report. Since the last CPIC meeting on April 6th, trustees have had one special board meeting and 2 board meetings. April 18th, the April 18th special board meeting was called to discuss the health and safety measures in our schools. There were concerns arising due to high teachers and student absenteeism and students being clubbed together in cafeterias and gyms, thus missing classes. This was of concern to trustees as it affected student achievement. There was a resolution that the board send a letter to the Ministry of Education outlining concerns with COVID-19 health and safety situation and its negative impact on staff and students at HCDSB, and that a letter be sent to the ministry to be shared with parents and guardians. Accordingly, a letter was sent out which matched the motion. At the April 19th board meeting, there was one action item, school liaison officer programs at HCDSB schools, which was discussed, debated, and passed. There was a resolution to reinstate the program after such time that a list of items were implemented and reported back to the board. The entire motion can be found in the minutes of the board meeting. The May 3rd board meeting did not have any action report for the first time, and I have nothing to report on that. But since I will take this opportunity to provide an update on the motion that was passed at the last CPIC meeting, as I'm a trustee representative of the board at these meetings. At the last meeting, there was a motion which was passed, and I heard and understood that the next steps were to be discussed with co-chair Jerry after the meeting. And it looks like there was a misunderstanding with each of us waiting for each other. I apologize for this confusion. And so this item will be added to the next board meeting under information reports. It was not possible to add this item to the board meeting on Tuesday as the draft agendas were already sent out, and we have a very full agenda for tomorrow's board meeting. So it will be taken care of once again, and the motion that was passed is important. I would like to let everybody know that. So with that, I will take any questions that CPIC members may have. Yes, Maria.
Hi there. I had 2 questions, but I guess you've answered one with respect to the motion. So
okay.
It's a little disappointing because there's only one more CPIC meeting before the end of the year, but hopefully we'll get it in time.
Yeah, I apologize for that. I really apologize for that, but it was a waiting game. But
okay, thank you for that. The other question is with respect to the letter that was sent to the ministry that you've mentioned, that was as a result of the resolution from the April 18th special meeting. And you did read out the resolution that said the letter was to outline concerns with the current COVID-19 health and safety situation and its negative impact on staff and students. And just before the vote, it was made really clear, because there was trustees were even asking, they wanted to clarify what the letter was going to be about. And it was really clear that the letter was not to ask for reinstatement of anything. And this was reiterated more than once. But when the letter was sent to the ministry, it specifically asked the ministry to reinstate mandatory masking. So the letter really was not compliant with the motion, and I'm just wondering how that happens.
So once again, if you read the motion and you read the letter reflects the motion. I do understand the what you're saying about the discussion and stuff like that, but the letter is not contradicting the motion in any way. So if we want to question the motion, it should have been a little more specific and in detail. So I stand by staff. I stand by the letter that's written, and that's all I can say.
Well, I completely disagree because, again, it was to outline concerns, not to ask for anything. And again, trustees made it clear as to what was the intent, and it was very clear that it was not to ask for reinstatement of anything, but then it did. So I definitely stand by my statement, and I know there's a lot of parents that were upset because the letter didn't reflect what was discussed or the motion. So I guess we'll agree to disagree.
Yeah, I guess. Anyway, thanks for the question. Any other questions? No more questions. Good, thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Dwyer. Okay, moving along to our standing items on our agenda. The next item up is an OAPSI update from Denise.
Hi, can you hear me, Jen?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, sorry, I didn't see my mic was registering on my side, wasn't working. Okay, hello everyone. We're very busy at OAPSI because of the upcoming very exciting one-day conference that's going to be held on May 28th at Bishop Redding. So Halton as a region is very excited to be able to host. I know OAPSI has reached out to a fair number of people on this CPIC committee. So we're working in the background for this. For those who are not aware, in terms of what's going on that particular day at Bishop Redding, the theme of the conference and the conference and the OAPSI AGM. So it's the theme is called reclaiming and re-engaging parents as partners. Quite a number of great speakers going to be featured. Dr. Neil Orlowski, who I featured actually at my own OAPSI meeting, who's an absolutely amazing speaker on the Abraham Global Peace Project, which you'll be continuing to speak about. And I know it's been the Peace Project has actually come to Queen of Heaven, so I'm a little aware of what has been happening in that realm, and it's quite exciting. A lot of speakers that you might know, like Paul Davis, Teresa Harnett, Greg Franken. Also we've worked to reach out to some very local organizations because I'd like to feature them as part of the speaking series. So I know that Dare to Be Youth will be speaking, and Grandmother's Voice, which is also local to Halton. So a very exciting time, great vendors market. If you haven't had the chance to, and also I know that OAPSI's reached out to our CPIC to also sit at the vendors table to promote CPIC to our parents and those who are attending, which is also a great thing. If you haven't had a chance to register, please do, because there are no walk-ins that day. So you have to go on the OAPSI website to register. So that's important. On the Halton, I guess, OAPSI other news is I'm in the works of finishing the preparations for the launch of the Halton webpage on the OAPSI website. So that's been a work in progress, and that should be coming sometime towards the end of May as an initiative. I'd also like to congratulate Director Daly, who will be receiving the Honorary Lifetime Membership Award from OAPSI at the May 28th celebration conference AGM. So congratulations, Director Daly, for that and your contributions to Catholic education throughout the years. Any questions for me on this? I'd be happy to take. Oh, looks like we're good.
Oh, Nancy, do you have a question?
Oh, Nancy, sorry.
Denise, do you know what the enrollment is for it? Do you have an overall number?
I know that she has a cap, so I know there's a cap on it. I think it's a cap of 150. If I don't quote me on it, they're getting close to that again, so that everyone's aware as well that this is it's not just Halton parents and OAPC reps and things. It is province wide, so there are a number of groups coming in from various different regions as well. Close to us, stuff from Peel, Hamilton and as Niagara, and then as well as north. So yeah, I know that she's getting close to the cap, and they will shut down the registration at a certain point. But I don't have that figure for you this evening.
Okay. She had reached out last week that it was low, and so I was just wondering because
it's moved up in terms of the numbers. We're still trying very hard because in terms of promoting within our own region, I think it's important for that. Sorry, that's my dog. If you can hear her playing with her toy. It's important to promote our own parents to come and to represent Halton. It's not just the reps that I've sent the emails to, but I know that it's been sent out. Thank you to the board as well for.
Okay, thanks, Denise. If you need anything, please let us know.
Okay. Sorry, can you hear me? Yeah. So thanks again.
No problem.
Thanks very much, Denise. And to reiterate Denise's invitation, the OAPC conferences, I've been to a few of them. They are great. The topics are great. They're a good opportunity to network. And we are so lucky to have it in our own region this year. There's almost no travel time, so I highly encourage you to register if you haven't already. All right, next up on our agenda are subcommittee updates. We'll start with the school council committee. Tiana?
It's Laura. Tiana's not able to join the meeting tonight, so Kevin and I will just sort of take the lead to give an update on the action items. So overall, we still have a number of deliverables and action items to mobilize. We had talked quite extensively about a resource page for the CPIC site, which sort of pushes school councils to access different resources that we can post there. It's mostly for school councils to share information. That is still an ongoing action item. Unfortunately, we haven't made much headway on that front. I'll talk a little bit tonight on the social media plan, and then I will pass it off to Kevin to just give a bit of an update on the school handbook. So as far as the social media plan, it's a rather big undertaking. So I will sort of preface the discussion with that. There, it's a big animal to sort of manage. But Jen and Jerry have provided an update just and feel free to read through it. But it will take some time for us to work through the logistics and very specifics about how we engage on social media. But part of the social media plan is to focus on two key social media platforms, that being Facebook and Twitter, and to do clearly regular posts, which will be a combination of various things, such as liking posts from other sites that we engage with, whether it be different schools or family of schools, within CPIC, within the Halton Catholic School Board, to comment on posts. And that whole piece of commenting and likes, we will manage through an app called Hootsuite. Hootsuite, basically, you can sort of pre-program it to engage behind the scenes, and you can tell it, we want to like, 10 posts this week, and you can set it to do various things. So that's how we intend on putting some of that in place to do regular engagement. But as far as the content itself, the gist of it is to include things such as various parent engagement events, whether OAPC is hosting, webinars or keynote speakers to talk about, ways to handle mental health and various type of, social issues, and anything that sort of is in the forefront to parents that OAPC puts out there, or other school board webinars that we can engage parents with. And the other part of that is to really highlight the things that the various schools themselves are doing, whether it's family of schools or individual schools. Perhaps they just had a very successful fundraiser that we can share pictures and talk about the success of those events. So various types of things in that realm. And then other things such as the CIAC or parish updates. So I think there should, standing items from various areas such as those that we hit on a very regular basis. The challenge will be, as far as the family of schools or individual schools, is we need a champion from each of those schools to be able to present the content to us. So, having a champion from each of the schools or perhaps within CPIC, whether it's, the various regions that we have representatives from that can collect the information, in turn share it with the subcommittee that we can in turn post. So there's a lot of those sort of logistical pieces that need to fall into place, which will require a bit of a bigger discussion as part of the entire CPIC committee to see how we can pull that all together. Social media, and it's a very large space and can do a lot of different things, but consistency of message, making sure the tone of the message is very consistent. Those are things that I think we can manage quite easily. It's the content. So getting different content from the various schools, I think, is important to share. So holistically, that's sort of just a big, a high level sort of overview. It is an evolving thing. It's as I mentioned earlier, a bigger animal than I sort of had anticipated from the beginning. But I will circle back with Jen and Jerry. We can talk through it a little bit more. There's just various components that will require some other stakeholders to be able to pull this together to make sure we're covering off enough content across various aspects of the Halton Catholic School Board. So that's that. If anybody has any questions sort of at a high level, happy to address them, or we can wait till after Kevin's update, but sort of open it up if anybody has any questions.
Thanks, Laura. Let's quickly summarize what we've been up to on the other end on our subcommittee. We had the task of looking at the handbook, revising the handbook, which we did over the last few months, and we were able to condense that to about 20 pages. And the key here being turning this handbook into almost a quick reference guide for school councils. And we're able to do just that, and we've summarized that and completed that, and we've forwarded the handbook now to both Jerry and the other person. Sorry, can't remember.
Jen. Yep.
Jerry and Jen. Sorry, I was about to say Jen and Jerry and Jen. And that's complete now. And I'm not sure if there are any questions with respect to the handbook, but for now it is complete, at least from our end. Thank you.
Does anybody have any questions? I will say that I did receive it. Thank you very much, Kevin. I have not had a chance to go through, but it is on my list of things to do for tomorrow. And I'm hoping to very quickly get through it. And Andrew is going to help me out with any kind of formatting, editing changes. And we're hopeful to get this finished this month. Anyone else have questions for Kevin or Laura? Okay, thank you very much for your update and for all of your work. It sounds like you guys have been working really hard to make some meaningful contributions to CPIC. Looking forward to it. I know it's going to be it's a beast, as Laura indicated. I think we'll probably have to start small and build rather than try to conquer Rome in one day.
Yeah, for sure.
But thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, up next is our Parent Community Engagement Committee. Alex, do you have an update for us?
Hello, everyone. How are you? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Alex.
Okay, perfect. So just before I start my report, I just wanted to send a message to Pat. So Pat, I want to congratulate you. My best wishes on your future endeavors. you will certainly be missed, and my admiration for the way in which you led the board during the good and the challenging times. Your work stays with all of us, especially with those of us that have worked with you. And I just want to, for God to keep blessing you and your family, and you will be missed. Just wanted to start with that. Yeah. So I'm going to move into the report. So we have not met, and I think it has been combination of several issues, including some health issues on my part, so I apologize for that. Definitely what I wanted to do, and I wanted to bring to the table, is for the next CPIC meeting, if I can just present a summary of the activities that took place and the proposed activities that that we kept on the site, especially the parent survey, the awards, and the timeline of events that we were working on. It did not seem to be the right time to be doing all these activities and all these plans on this year. And hopefully, next year, they can the new CPIC committee members can reevaluate and decide, simultaneously with the logistics of the social media plan, which of these initiatives that at the beginning of the year we considered important to keep engaging the parent community were taking place. So yes, I hope that that's something that we can bring for the next CPIC meeting and leave it as a legacy or the starting point for the new CPIC members. Definitely, I had, just on a personal note, I have noticed something that I think will help whoever is leading this committee in the future. And it is, I don't know how easy it is to present, to have like a condensed activity calendar of all the activities that happen in all our schools, so we do not overlap. I know that at the times that we were just getting in conversations with Sarah Westbrook and the other people, we then realized that she was presenting one day at the school, then she was presenting with CPIC. So that made it a little bit challenging, not knowing exactly which presenters and which engagement activities the schools are doing. So I just had that as a suggestion, and maybe if it's possible, I don't know how that can happen, that all activities that are happening, as we have a calendar on the board of the CPIC meeting and the SEAC meeting and the Board of Trustees meeting, maybe have something that can condense all the activities so we can plan better and reach our community. I'm not aware, and if someone can share about that, because I haven't read anything about it. How did Sarah Westbrook's second presentation with the parents and the children went? That would be great. I hope I can find more information about that for next meeting. And for me, that's it for the committee.
Nancy.
Thank you, Jen. And thank you for the questions, Alex. So Alex, there's second session was happening during Catholic Education Week. And so unfortunately, we didn't have any CPIC members that were able to attend that event. So I started the session together with Andrea, and Andrea managed it because that same night, Holy Trinity, Loyola, and St. Thomas Aquinas were doing their pro-grant engagement event at the school in person at Holy Trinity. So I started it, then I attended in the in-person event, and Andrea carried on. It was attended by 66 families. The event, as Andrea said, it was just as engaging as the first session. The parents that were in it loved it. I do believe the survey went out. A little concern that had come back around the survey was the survey went out to all the parents, and it probably should only have gone to the parents who attended the session or the parents who had signed up, because I think over 200 had actually signed up for the event, but we didn't need to send that survey out to all of the parents. So for sure, for the last one, we'll only send it out to the parents who registered to participate in the event. Those who were there, they enjoyed it, they were engaged, and it was well received. Alex, I hear what you're saying about trying to have a master calendar. Halton Catholic is getting big, and I can tell you on any given week, there's many events that are happening in our schools. So I'm not sure if we can do a master calendar of that size, but we could think about it as some way to do it so there's no overlap. But at the same time, Alex, sometimes an event that a school creates to something that CPIC creates, like there might be some overlap, but some parents, it just may be that they attend it with their school and then they may attend it with CPIC and maybe not, but like that's just the way it's going to be in terms of our size. What I would say is CPIC doing Sarah Westbrook this year, okay, actually gave advertisement to Sarah, so schools were using her as well. Okay, so knowing that some parents couldn't engage during Catholic Education Week because there was events happening at schools during that week, it's okay if there's some overlap, okay? Because it's just about every opportunity we provide to our parents to do something with their school community. And so we may not find the right date, but like a lot of our presenters, like even OAPC doing their conference, their guest speakers are people that many of the schools have access for the program for their school as well. It's just sort of that same similar type of presenter that we're looking for, and if it meets our needs, okay? So definitely we'll take that suggestion of what you said, but I think it would be a pretty onerous task to have a whole calendar with all the different bookings that every school is doing throughout the year. Okay, and we have those key touch points where schools book, like Catholic Education Week, there's multiple things that are happening during that week, so there's going to be overlap. Okay.
Yes, I totally understand. Actually, that was my point. Not that we have so many schools and so many, maybe it would come more handy, right, to get something, because I have to be honest with you, every single time that Sarah was booked, there was something at my child's school, right? So it was, I was one of the parents that had to make a decision of what to do. But thank you so much for hosting that second session, and we're looking forward for the third one. And Andrea, if you can send me the whatever feedback they had, I would really appreciate it so I can get all that feedback together for the report that I will be presenting for the next CPIC meeting.
So Alex, I heard the last session is on June 2nd, just within CPIC that's here tonight. Do we know who may be attending on June 2nd to do the welcoming, the introduction and that?
Let me send an email to everybody from the committee and I will get back to you in the next 2 days.
Okay, great. Thank you, Alex.
Great. Thank you very much for the update, Alex. Last subcommittee is bylaws. Jerry, do you have an update for CPIC?
No further update from our last meeting. The subcommittee has not met since.
Thank you, Jerry. All right. CPIC representation on board committees. I'm not sure if there are any updates from these committees if they have met, but we'll run through them. Jordan, did the mental health committee meet at all since our last meeting? Mute Jordan. I see Jordan on the call, but maybe she's having problems with her mic. And Tiana is not on the call. Violetta, do you have any update for homeschool parish partnership?
Yes, Violetta. No, there has not been any meeting since our last CPIC meeting, so no updates for me.
Great, thank you very much. Okay, up to the discussion items for this evening. The first discussion item is the Council of Chair agenda. So our Council of Chairs meeting is a week this Wednesday, the 25th. On the agenda currently is, or the draft agenda at least that we've put together, is a presentation on the home church, which is a faith-focused presentation led by Jillian and Patricia. We're also hoping to talk about the handbook as well as the year-end report. Is there anything else that anyone would like to have added to this agenda? Any ideas or suggestions? We will also be doing things like announcing the successful candidates for CPIC representation next year. Anything else anybody would like to suggest? Okay,
Hi, sorry, I had issues connecting there. I can hear
problem,
you saying my name. And I couldn't even get into the chat to say I'm having issues.
No problem.
No, sorry, I have no update.
Okay, no problem. Thanks, Jordan.
Thanks.
Okay, so we will be sending out the agenda for Council of Chairs probably on Wednesday of this week. So if there is anything else that anybody would like to suggest, please feel free to send it towards Jerry. Nancy, do you want to jump in?
Sure, thanks, Jen. I just want to, talking about the presentation that Jillian and Patricia Debban will be presenting. Patricia is the author of a book titled One Home at a Time. And the premise of the book is that it's living out our domestic church, as they know that there's many families that may not be attending church, but they're faithful families, and just how we come together and what things you can do. So it's a fairly simple read. It's a short book, and we have purchased a copy of the book, and we're sending it to all the chairs of our councils ahead of the meeting. Okay, so that will go out to them, and then Patricia and Jillian will present about the book and what's in the book, and then schools, then if they choose to buy it or want it, that they will be able to. They've have about a 20-minute presentation that's going to take place with Q&A. Okay, after that. So that's the premise of what they're going to present to us. And back to Violetta, because we didn't get Jillian and Patricia to present the way your hope for during the season of Lent and leading up to Holy Week, but they do have the plan for next year of a 3-part series that they're going to provide to CPIC, and they will introduce that to us in the fall.
Nancy, is that series like a folk around like the church calendar, like is it Advent specific or Lent specific? Okay.
Yes, it is. Okay,
great. Okay, next item up on our discussion item, it was the school council response as a result of the CPIC elections, which Nancy's already addressed in her update. 6.3 was we were actually just want to talk around the parent hosted engagements. So for this third event that is coming up that Nancy alluded to on June the 2nd with Sarah Westbrook, maybe Alex, if you could let us know maybe by the end of this week, who will be introducing and leading that session, such that if there is not a committee member that's going to be doing that, that we can arrange to have some other CPIC member do that. That would be great.
Yeah, sure.
The OAPSE conference we've also already discussed. We strongly encourage everyone who is able to attend, and also Denise also mentioned we do have a table there, a Halton CPIC table. We would really appreciate all of our representatives helping out at the table at some point during the day. We've designed some brochures and we have some giveaways. So we would really appreciate your help, even if it's for an hour or two at the table. That's a Saturday, May the 28th. If you are able to help out, please let Jerry know. He's been organizing the volunteers and scheduling the table time.
Jen, if I may, just for a quick minute, please, folks. You know what? Many hands make light work, and it's important too that we show ourselves there at the OAPSE conference and support to you know, one of our most important partners in Catholic education. So to this point, I've only heard from a couple of people that have put their hand up to come out and help cover the table at the vendor fair that day. So please, I'll send a reminder. Please, if you can carve out some time, you know what, it's important for us as CPIC to just be there, whether it be at the table or as participants. So one way or the other, I'd encourage everyone to come out. So like I said, I'll send a reminder. Please do come forward and choose a time slot to come help man our table and attend the terrific presentations that they've got lined up for us as well. Okay, and register before it fills up. All right, thanks. That's my spiel.
Thanks, Jerry. All right, on to the last item in our discussions, which is the email that Maria had forwarded on School Council and CPIC annual reporting and financial reporting. Maria, I want your thoughts here on how we can go through this. I was, when I read through it, I was thinking that perhaps we could kind of go through each like observation or recommendation and discuss them, or unless there's a different way you would like to lead the discussion.
I was trying to figure that out myself because there is a lot there. And I think once I started putting it together, you know, there was more than I even realized. And as I started looking into things. So I had tried to write kind of a summary to provide, but it's still kind of lengthy. So yeah, if you want to go through it piece by piece, we can do that. I don't know if you want to give me any kind of, if you want me to give any kind of overview, or I'm open, I guess. So.
Okay. Before we jump into this, I see Alex has her hand up. Alex, is there something you wanted to raise? Nope. Okay. Maria, either way is fine. I'm not sure. I'm presuming that everybody has read the email in detail, given that we did send it out in advance of the meeting, and it was also attached to the updated agenda that went out today. If you want to give a brief overview, I'm fine with that, Maria, and then maybe we can kind of go through the points and see what everyone's thoughts are.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not sure my overview will be as brief as maybe, but let's see. I do want to just kind of give the, you know, sort of the context and just that, you know, my purpose in bringing forward these agenda items is just to have a discussion about some of the parent engagement tools that are already available and actually required to be used by school councils, and hopefully to generate some recommendations of how they could be used more effectively, which also includes improving compliance with ministry regulations as well as the board's existing policies. So as I mentioned, I have, you know, 13 different years experience on school councils, various different capacities, working with different principals encompassing both panels. And I've also looked at what different schools are doing in our board and sometimes other boards. And I've attended parent engagement conferences and other learning opportunities over the years. So the feedback does come from a experience, observation, and education. It's not, you know, from one experience, 1 year, or one school. And I would say that authentic engagement requires an atmosphere of good communication, accountability, and transparency. And I think it's also important to note that council's role is to represent and support all of the school community. And sometimes, in my experience, that's not always well understood or accepted by some of the people that sign up to be on council. So the goal should be parent engagement school-wide, not just, you know, parent council members or school council members. So there's a couple of tools that I brought forward for discussion that are already available to help with these goals, and there's regulatory requirements that I think are really a bare minimum. So if our goal is parent engagement, then I think there's a lot more that can be done with these tools. And I think as a parent involvement committee, that's what we should be encouraging and recommending. So I'll just, with the annual report, because I know the agenda breaks up the annual report from the financial report. So I'll just give a little overview on the annual report piece, and I'll save the other piece for after. But so as I understand it, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but the process in our board involves a template, which is provided to school council chairs to complete and submit back to CPIC. And the information's fairly basic. And one thing to note is it does not include a financial report, which is actually required in the regulation. The regulation also requires that the annual report is shared with all parents and guardians of the school community, which is not currently part of the process here. And the school level, the information might be of value to the CPIC chairs, which is great, but that's not the intended purpose of the report. That would be more of an ancillary benefit, I would say. The ministry has a guide for school councils, and they share 2 versions. So that's one of the attachments. So they have a minimum information that should be provided, which again includes a financial statement, as well as a more detailed approach, which is a lot more informative and engaging. And I really believe that a detailed engaging report would have a significant impact on parent engagement at the school level. I know we can't mandate it maybe, but it could be encouraged. Parents, guardians and volunteers like to see the impact of their contributions, both financial and otherwise. And it also makes them feel appreciated. So I think this type of reporting is really critical to sustaining ongoing parent engagement levels in our schools. I've included a couple reports that I prepared myself in my roles as chair or co-chair, and they're modeled after the ministry's more detailed approach. And then finally, the regulation also requires that CPIC prepare an annual report. So I don't know if that's happening, and we're just not seeing it. But also the school board HCDSB policy requires that the director provide a summary of CPIC's activities to all Catholic school councils and to post them on the board website, which that, you know, again, in my experience and observations, is not happening. And I also included a copy of Toronto Catholic CPIC annual report, just as an example. There are other ones out there, but that one's very, very detailed and involved. I'm not suggesting that we produce necessarily something like that, but it's just an example that yes, other boards are doing this, and it is a requirement. So that's kind of my summary. So I don't know if you want to go through then each point from there or open it up for discussion.
Okay, Mary, I think what I'd like to do maybe first is for some of your points there, I was kind of jotting down, and I would be curious to hear Nancy or Pat's response to some of them with respect to things like, for example, I know that you're right, because I fill out those reports for the school councils as well. They don't ask for a financial report, but I'm wondering, is that something that the principal sends maybe on the side? Not that it should be the way, but I'm just wondering. And I have never seen the CPIC and a CPIC annual report being done, nor have I seen the director providing a summary of CPIC activities, but perhaps that's being done behind the scenes. So I'm curious to see if Nancy or Pat have any commentary to provide.
Thanks, Jen. Okay, so first of all, with regards to reporting back to the ministry, the CPIC activities and things like that, that we do. So that does go back to the ministry. So at the end of the school year, the same way we ask the Catholic school councils to submit, we submit to the ministry all the activities that CPIC did. The missing piece is we don't provide that report on the website. So thank you for that feedback. And that is definitely something we can do and incorporate so parents can see all the different things that CPIC does do. And I don't know if prior to me taking over CPIC, if that was done, but appreciate that insight and that recommendation, and it's something we can look into. With regards to financial, okay, so I oversee the budget for parent engagement, okay, and the budget for parent engagement, that is the budget line is $39,500, okay, which is the exact same amount of money that we got from the Ministry of Education last year. And I don't know how the ministry decides on that amount of money, but basically what we have to do is the ministry gives us that money and we have the parameters, which is part of our pro-grant proposal form that we send out to all the schools. We divvied up a portion of the money for CPIC, a portion of the money for SEAC, a portion of the money went to our Indigenous Advisory Committee. They used it. And then we had the schools submit their proposal. I believe our due date was a date in December, and the money was allocated. Okay, so the exact amount of money, we have expensed that money. And even all of the proposals, if we were short in the budget line that the Ministry of Education has provided to us, we will, I will use other money. Okay, so under my portfolio, I'll use other money just to honor what the schools had asked for or ask their family school superintendent so that we ensured that the parent engagement sessions are complete. I do have to report back to the ministry. What I'm thinking is here is what you're saying, because we do it, is it's not transparent. So that report that I submit to the ministry, I will present it back to CPIC, but it will be for the start of the next year because Andrew and I finished that in the first week of July. Okay, so it's not something that we do before the end of the school year. Does that help provide some clarity?
Actually, no. And I can elaborate why. So I think there's a bit of confusion on a couple of points. First of all, I wasn't referencing any reporting to the ministry because I was not actually aware of reporting requirements to the ministry. Those aren't in the regulation that I'm aware of. this was reporting requirements to the community. So the CPIC report, again, and this is within our own board policy that it says it's supposed to be on the website as well as provided to all Catholic school councils. So that's not happening. And you mentioned the parent engagement fund. So that sounds like that's CPIC money. But again, I don't even know in the CPIC part if I talked about the financial component, because I don't know if it states, I can't remember if it states something about a financial component for CPIC, but I was talking about school councils, and what it says in the regulation is that any school councils involved in fundraising, which I believe all of ours are, if not most of them are, that the annual report for those schools involved in fundraising has to include a financial statement. So that's different from the parent engagement money that you're talking about. This is like just all the other fundraising that's happening. And again, if you look at the ministry sample, they have like a pretty detailed one that you can see, you know, they show like, you know, pizza day monies or what, I don't remember what's on it, but that type of thing. So that's what that's getting at. So I think we're talking about a couple of different things.
Maria, so, okay, so let me, I'm around CPIC, and just to clarify that, and then we'll do the individual Catholic school councils. So there's no additional CPIC money, okay? So we don't have another line in our board budget to CPIC. CPIC falls under the parent engagement envelope that the Ministry of Education gives to us, okay? So I don't want you to think, now, years prior, because I was involved as a principal on CPIC, when the CPIC committee had their annual conference that they offer to parents, okay, a portion of that money was always allocated to that type of a parent engagement session. However, how we moved, especially because of COVID and everything, the way we've done it, we've moved more to these virtual sessions and the way we've done it. But because we have these 3 advisory committees to the board, we allowed for some of that. So that's just on that piece. Okay.
Yeah. If I just want, I just want to say, I that's fine. And I wasn't suggesting there was, I didn't think there was other monies. I wasn't aware of anything else. I wasn't suggesting anything in that regard at all. So just to be clear. Yeah.
Okay. With regards to the Catholic school councils and their year-end report. Okay. So their year-end report, and Maria, your year-end report, it is an excellent year-end report. Okay. And I'm going to be honest with you. I really would hope that we would be successful in getting every Catholic school council to provide that much detail and conciseness to everything. I know that that's why it's evolved, because last year we did get a report from everybody, because we had created it in a Microsoft form that was fairly simple for people to complete for us. Okay. Having said that, we could look at that again and add other things to it, but we have to be realistic that our Catholic school councils have a duty to provide something back to the community. They do. It's not as detailed as what you have provided, but they do have a reporting mechanism that they share back to their Catholic school council. So they submitted those reports through my office. That's how we created the ministry report. Okay. And it had the guidelines. What it doesn't, in terms of, it doesn't have the line by line financial, because that is a separate mechanism. That's how we operate here in Halton Catholic through business services. So business services oversees school generated funds. This Catholic school council, the school principals to present to the Catholic school council, like the setting up the plan every year that they have to do by November 30th. And then they're to report back on the SGF. The template that the schools share that with their Catholic school councils has been developed through business services. Okay. What I'm hearing through your communication and in conversation with Jen earlier today is that the way that report comes to parents, it doesn't give a lot of detail. It doesn't really clarify that. And what, Maria, from when you're saying like pizza days and things like that, I'll be honest with you, business services over the years, with the way School Cash Online set up and with the way the one bank account is set up, it looks a little bit different. But you've provided this feedback, and I'm going to take it back to business services and say, can we make that report more user-friendly to the parent who's seen it? That when if you are sitting in a Catholic School Council and the principal is presenting that report, they can go through item to item to the Catholic School Council. But if the parent isn't present or who sees it online, they may not know what all that information means. Okay, so I do take this as feedback that I'm going to bring back to business services so that we can bring back to CPIC and say, let's look at that form, and is this more something that is beneficial to the parents who are sitting on Catholic School Council, and then we'll share that to the school community.
And if I can just make a couple of comments, and I think Alex has been waiting with her hand up, but I just don't want to lose my train of thought. Sorry, Alex. Yeah, and I think we had the financial report as sort of a separate agenda item. So if we could maybe talk about that a bit more under that. But I guess the issue is that whatever the format is, it should be part of the annual report as per the regulation. So that's one thing that's missing. And I do agree with you. Like I think it would be I think it would not go over well if you told school council chairs that they have to provide this like super detailed report. But I guess maybe if there's an opportunity to do a little bit more with the existing template, and then just a recommendation, like here, you know, the ministry, like I said, they have their template in their document, and just a suggestion, like, and if you want to give an example, to say, you know, a report like this would be really appreciated type thing, or, you know, just to suggest it and recommend it. I understand that you can't enforce something at that level, but that's just, that was where I was coming from, was to maybe just promote it as something that could be done.
Thank you, Maria. I appreciate that feedback, and I will take it back and then come back to you. Okay.
Yeah. So I had a couple of things, but I think, oh yeah, Alex, go ahead.
Maria.
Yeah.
Oh. Alex.
Hi. No, I read in detail what was written about the annual reporting, and I totally understand the difference between the programs that Nancy was talking about and this. So this is like more or less that what I got from it, Maria. So just if this can shed some light, or maybe this can be something that can help us clarify. So how I see this is, I was in CPIC when the schools did not have websites, right? And it's amazing how far we have come, you know, to have the system that we have today. So when we talk about the annual reporting, it seems to me that this can be the next step to be able to set a tool for the school councils, right? And from my point of view, it is very much on the scope of what CPIC is about. That is having opportunities to keep strengthening the school councils, right? As a way of, you know, like if we had I don't know, like a section in CPIC about the school council where they can share their best practices, their events. Well, regarding this this annual reporting, what I see is that it's worth evaluating as a recommendation from CPIC members to the board, having this annual report, you know, like a format, a template, however you want to develop it, just to guarantee three things: consistency, uniformity, and transparency from every school. It doesn't have to be anything complicated. It really has to, I think it will make it actually easier for the school councils to be able to know how to report. We have the Catholic board, and the Health and Catholic is not going to get smaller. It's always getting bigger. So why don't we develop a tool that is going to help and serve every school council? And actually that idea came when I was hearing Kevin talking to Bo today about the handbook condensing to 20 pages and how this is a good quick reference guide for them. I was wondering if that can be something that we can, as CPIC, support to help the school councils like grow at the same time. It's not, they don't have to reinvent the wheel. If someone already has a good template and we can somehow work together, Nancy, with all the team at the board, just to have something that is going to help support the other schools that maybe don't have that kind of reporting, that maybe don't have the tools to come to that point. So I just want to present that, you know, like this is how would say, it's very much how I see the role of CPIC, trying to support the school councils in every single school to come and work together. And I really think that with the work that has been done this year in CPIC, in every single area, the school councils can keep growing stronger, right? They will be able to share and detect best practices, right? When they say the annual reports or the other people, they can be able to share best practices, to detect areas of improvement, to present accurate statements that are going to be available to the parents and the community, and that people can read them and relate one school to the other, because maybe you have children in a high school and in elementary school, right? So that is very much what my take is on this. And I really appreciate very much the clarity of the recommendations that have been made in that email, the ABCs. I don't know if A, B, and C, yeah, that are there, like revise the SGF reporting, and implemented the process to ensure compliance with the regulations and requirements and expectations of administrations. I think that that's setting us in a good path to keep improving. And just as the last thing, I just want to thank you, Maria, for bringing your knowledge and expertise. I'm not an expert in this. Surprisingly, I have never been part of the school councils more than a year, and putting all your knowledge and all this information that you have been able to get together to the service of the parent community is really, really appreciated, and your work has been very valuable. So I just wanted to say that as we decided on the last CPIC meeting that CPIC could make some recommendations, to the board, I think this one is one that is worth looking at. And just from the time that I started in CPIC, maybe 7 or 8 or 9 years, I've lost count, really to be able to support the school councils is the main role of CPIC. And this is exactly what we're here for. So that's all on my part.
Thanks, Alex. I believe Nancy did allude to, and I know I've filled them out myself, there is a template. It could probably be enhanced, absolutely, to make the reporting a little more valuable. That's something we will have to have Nancy look into doing. However, I think the point still remains, and Maria, I'm not sure if this has been addressed to your satisfaction, but the fact that the annual report doesn't include the financial statement piece. Is that, Nancy, done somewhere else, or is that just something that's deficient right now?
It's done because at the business services oversees the SGF, okay, and runs that report, right? So money in, money outs, and things like that. Yep. Where, to me, if there's the gap is if the Catholic School Council has a finance committee, and for example, their goal was to fundraise whatever the amount of money. I'm going to use like my elementary lens, like $25,000, because it was for specific things that the community had identified that they wanted to do. Okay. So if that was the goal, there should be something that shows, like, we had our dance-a-thon, we raised 25,000 or 26,000. These were the items we said we were going to purchase. Right. So you saw money in, then you saw the expenses, and it's the money of what they said. But who would traditionally oversee it is if you had a finance committee who would meet together with, you know what I mean, which is representatives from your council with staff representatives, and then they would come back and report that to your Catholic School Council. And then that would be shown in that report that Business Services has created. I hear what you're saying, and it's not as transparent as if that's like the way it is
part of the template, like if it was included in that report.
I hear that. And so that I am going to bring that feedback back, because I do think that there's a lot of schools that have their finance committee and they fundraise and parents know where the money's going, but some schools it's not as apparent. This is what I'm getting from this conversation. So we want to make sure that we create something that it is more transparent so everybody can see it. Okay. But that the schools do, although through Maria's highlighting right now, there has been some gaps with them posting. And it's about posting it because they do present it to their Catholic School Council, but that mechanism of who's responsible to then put it on the school website is where the gap is, and we need to rectify that as well. Okay.
I think you're muted, Jennifer.
I just want to hand it back to you to see if there are any other points on your annual reporting that you would like to discuss further before we move on to financial reporting.
I need things really clear and spelled out for me. So maybe this doesn't need to be said again, but I will, just to make sure that doesn't get missed. And I hear what Nancy's saying. There is financial reporting happening, and I'm not disputing that. It's not as clear, as transparent as it could be. I think there are also gaps in terms of whether it's being presented to school councils 3 times a year. But the bigger issue here in terms of the annual report is that it should be part of the annual report. So even if it's happening elsewhere, and you know, again, we can debate what the format should be, how much detail should be on there, but it is required in the regulation and again in our board policy that be part of the annual report. So I just want to be really clear about that. And the other thing we haven't really talked about is that these reports should be shared, whatever the format is, they are required to be shared with parents. So again, I think that it's happening between sort of CPIC and the school councils, but not being shared with the community. And again, that is, you know, and again, I think it's a great idea whether it's required or not, for reasons that I've shared, but it is required to be shared. So that piece I think should be addressed. And we did talk about it similarly with CPIC, that it should be shared. There should be something shared with school councils. And I think Nancy already acknowledged that she was going to look into doing that and posting on the board website. So that I think that should cover everything.
Okay, I think as I'm just looking back at my notes, I don't think we talked about CPIC in a report. I don't know if anyone is aware of it being done in the past, but
you're right.
It's something we could definitely do in the future, but I was not involved in producing one last year. I don't know if Jerry has any comments. You know, he started a year before me.
Yeah, no, Jen, as Nancy mentioned, I think that's kind of been handled by the superintendent in charge, or representing on CPIC in the past. I don't know. Is that something that should be done? I must confess, I don't know what the regs are. Certainly, our own bylaws don't address it.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah.
you know, is that something that should come down to us to contribute to? And again, probably, you know, future discussion, I would say.
Okay.
Can I just elaborate a little bit there? Is that the regulation, sorry, does say that, and the board policy, which I think is just modeled after the regulation, but it does say that CPIC is to produce an annual report to be provided to the chair and the director. That's what's in the regulations and the board policy. And then the board policy goes on to say that the director is to share a summary with school councils and to post it on the website. So that's not in the regulation, but it's in the board policy, and that's all in the document. But the ministry guide doesn't give any examples of CPIC reporting, because I think the ministry guide came out, it's an old guide, but it's still on their website. The ministry guide came out before Regulation 330, so it came out before parent involvement committees were required. So there's not a lot of detail from the ministry that I could find on what the expectation is there. So there's a little bit more latitude maybe there.
Okay. Okay, I think that covers off annual reporting, but I'm going to ask Alex if she has anything else she'd like to add to this section before we move on to financial reporting. Alex?
Yes, I just wanted to add that as I wrote that, we used to have a finance committee made of the parent members who are looking at those finances of CPIC, and I think it's been in the last 3 years that it hasn't been done. I know until Gail was here, and that was for sure done. So I think if the regulation says that we need it, it would be good to go back and start doing it again. Just, you know, like just for the same reason that we have it for the school councils, you know, for consistency, transparency, and being able to show what is happening.
Sorry, maybe I missed that, but I didn't recall. Marie, were you alluding to the fact that we should have a finance committee? Because I'm not sure it's really necessary for CPIC, given that we don't have any money. Maria, was that one of your recommendations? Did I miss that?
Sorry, I was muted. No, I didn't allude to that at all. Nancy brought up the finance committees, and I don't remember if I said anything about them at all. I would say I haven't seen that in practice very often, but no.
At the elementary and secondary level, you mean?
Yeah, like when I very first joined, like 13 years ago, we did have like we didn't call it a finance committee, but we had a treasurer, and I was actually the treasurer, and we prepared detailed reports, and we were able to get detailed reports from the school. But it's gotten increasing, and I could talk about that in the financial piece, but it's gotten increasingly difficult to get that information. So it's kind of hard.
I agree. And I think what changed, Maria, because I was in the same boat as you when I started, we had the committee, and we had our own bank account, and that's why we were more involved, I think, in exactly what was happening with the money. When that went away, and we weren't signing checks and reconciling the bank account and what have you, then it seemed that the finance committees became like one financial rep. At least that's the way it is on my councils.
Yeah, I never had that experience of writing checks, and I don't know if it was a separate bank account. There were certainly separate general ledger accounts. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I haven't come across. So again, we didn't have a committee. We had a treasurer, and then we would have. I guess we had a group like a budget committee or whatever it was. We got together and put together a budget. There's definitely a lot more involved on the financial side than what I have seen over the years. That seems to have gone away. So there may be some councils with finance committees. I don't know how common it is, though.
Okay.
Definitely not, everyone.
This sounds like a good segue to your next section of your comments here on financial reporting. So I'll let you maybe lead what some of your recommendations are for that.
Yeah. So again, there's a lot of detail, and I don't really want to get into the same level of detail that's in the submission, but hopefully everyone's read it or will, can read it. I just would say that, again, based on my experience, a lot of the requirements and expectations, in my experience, aren't happening or not consistently. And that also comes from looking at school websites. And again, I do give some specific examples, but what I find really problematic, and it's not something you can put into a policy, I guess, but it's more of a cultural thing where sometimes we ask for that information, even asking for what's actually supposed to be required. The response is kind of like, why are you asking? And, you should trust us. And, it's not a matter of trust. It's a matter of I think that parents have a right to know. And I think it's it's just transparency again, right? So that's one thing that maybe can be addressed somehow, because I think it's a bit of a cultural issue. And we've already talked about the format for the SGF reporting, and Nancy's acknowledged that it's not very informative. And I would love to offer my my help in talking to the finance group to developing a new format. I'm an accountant, so I think I can speak their language, and I've given it a lot of thought. But it's very, very, very broad categories and very summarized. And just one example that I would give, so we've got our categories, we've got revenue, expense, and opening and closing balance, right? But I don't know what expense means because, for example, I'll give the example of school council fundraising. And let's say you're doing pizza days. So to me, revenue is the money that you collected to buy the pizza. And to me, expense is the cost of the pizza or any other costs involved in running that program. And, and again, when I did my financial reporting, when I was treasurer, I had a separate section that showed then how those net proceeds were dispersed. So whether we bought a water filling station for the school. So to me, that's not an expense. I don't know I'm trying to think of a better term for that, but, whether it's a disbursement, which is kind of same as expense, but if you know what I'm getting at, when I look at that report, I don't know what expense means. Is that things we've bought with the proceeds of the money, or is that costs associated with bringing in the money? So that's one thing. The categories are broad. Some of them don't make sense to me. Like, what is administration? What is departments? There's a big other category. And I think what's really important is, I think parents just have a right to know, because they're usually, or other volunteers, they're the ones that are doing the work. They're the ones contributing the money. And I think that they have a right to know how it's being spent. And I think they're more willing to contribute when they can see the benefits. And again, I've heard challenges. I've heard challenges from administrators. This is on the high school side, but with difficulties collecting the student activity fee, and particularly, in the current environment. and I've shared with the administrators, and others have shared it as well, that, you know, I think parents would be more willing to pay if they knew specifically where that money was going. But they don't seem to want to share this information. And it's not like every, you know, you can have different levels of detail. It's not every $5, but you could have like speakers, X amount of dollars, whether you want to list out the individual speakers or not. Even knowing that this much went to speakers tells us something. And I know sometimes the response has been, well, here's the kinds of things that we use the money for, yearbooks and speakers and etc. But again, that's not particularly transparent. And it would be great to see that the format of that report to give a bit more information and details, and also to ensure that the reports are being shared with the frequency that's required in the policies, and so on. And the other piece would just be the plan is, it's not in a policy or anywhere, but we hear it all the time, that the SJF plan is supposed to be a collaborative process between council and the administrators. And again, that's not really been my experience. And just judging from the breakout room we had in the one council chairs meeting, I didn't really get the feeling that it was happening a lot elsewhere either. So those are kind of the main points. Oh, just one other thing I want to say. I had given some details about some of the reports that are available online, and I noticed that the one school that had not provided a report since 2021, so they now have provided a more updated report. And I thought their $300,000 balance would have gone down, but they're actually holding like over $500,000 in SGF funds, and 200,000 is in other. So I think that's a good example of, that's not really very informative, right? Like 200,000 of other is a big number. So anyways, that's kind of my summary on that, and happy to take any questions or comments.
Great, thanks, Maria. That was great. And I agree with you on the vast majority of your points. Jerry, I see you have your hand up.
Yeah, thanks, Jen, and thanks, Maria. So just, I don't know, just, I know Violetta shared in the chat her experience at her school, and likewise, ours is similar at our school. The summary report that gets posted on the website, and again, I can't speak obviously for all school councils, but I know at the council level, we get the detailed report presented to us at least 3 times a year. At our council meetings, which of course are open to everyone. All parents can attend our council meetings, so that's one way they can access that level of detail. And then the summary report that goes on the website. I agree. It's very high level. It's not very descriptive. But is there? I guess number one, the question would be what's number one, what's the harm in posting the full detailed line by line report? Does that provide value in posting that so broadly and publicly? And I guess I don't have an answer to that question. I'm just kind of posing it. But I can say that for the most part, I do believe that the detailed reporting is happening. It's there. I get it sent to me regularly, as does the rest of the council. So I guess, like everything, I'm sure we've got inconsistency across the board. So what can we do to address that, and where appropriate, make it available to those that want to read it. I suspect if you polled most parents, I think by and large they're gonna be pretty like, you know what, yeah, like we're happy to support the school, we're happy to contribute to the school fundraising. Do I want a line by line detailed reporting on how it's all spent? No, because I've got trust that the council is going to look at it, that the school administration is going to use it wisely. Does that mean there shouldn't be accountability? No, certainly not. But I just before we go down a path of specifying further what that kind of detailed reporting should be, what it should look like, and whatnot. I just want to be cognizant of not making it make work either where it's not called for. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and not to say there should be more done for consistency. I agree. Those anomalies, and I certainly hope, Maria, the one you cited, where they're sitting on hundreds of thousands of dollars, that's extraordinary. I would hope that's extraordinary, and that's not typical. Those certainly need to be addressed.
Yeah.
Because SGF should be spent in the year it's raised, by and large. right?
So the issue with high school, Jerry, is they're
population.
collecting those activity fees the year before. And that's why they're holding higher balances often. But I agree with you. And from my personal experience at an elementary level, the reporting and the clarity as to where the money is being spent is a lot more so than it is at the high school level. That's been my experience. Maria?
Yeah,
There's a lot for your high schools, so certainly should be easier to get our arms around that.
Well, I was going to say I agree with you, Jennifer. And the thing is, though, you know, why that's sort of ironic is the balances are so much higher in high school, and yet we have less information. And to Jerry's point, that's not, now some of those, the $300,000 balances, I don't know how common those are, or in this $500,000 balance I'm seeing, but it is not at all unusual for high schools to carry between 100 and 200,000. Like every time I look at the report, it's in that range. And some of it is the activity fees have their own line, because there's a line for clubs and activity fees. So yeah, I get that those are collected a year in advance, but a lot of the other lines have big balances too. And if I can just, since I'm speaking now, just to address a couple of Jerry's points. Yeah, I don't want to sound, and again, I'm, you know, trying to be sort of concise and brief here, but I don't want to, I hope I'm not coming across suggesting that no schools are doing these things, right? That's not my point at all. However, I will say again, I've been at multiple schools, multiple principals, and have had little experience where it's kind of being done how I would consider, right? But absolutely, I'm sure there are schools that have fabulous reporting, very transparent and all of that, not questioning that at all. And so maybe those are the ones we'd look to model after, right? And just in terms of providing more detail, yeah, I think that there needs to be a balance. I'm not suggesting, like when you say line by line, you know, I don't know how detailed you're thinking there, but yeah, I think we don't want to have too much detail for sure, but I think there needs to be more than what we have now. It's very, like, it tells me nothing. It's like saying, you know, if my husband said, why don't we have any money in the bank? Well, you know, your paycheck was $3,000 and I spent $3,000. That's why. I mean, it answers the question. You know, what does it tell you? It doesn't really tell you anything. And that's kind of how I see these reports. So what's the appropriate level of detail? That's a good question. And I'm not looking to create make work project either. You know, we have a lot of schools. But just something a little bit more informative. And I think in particular with the school council and the fundraising monies, because that's where the parents are, I mean, the parents bring in the activity fees and so on as well, I guess, but at the high school level. But, you know, in particular, the money that the parents are contributing, I think, and I have had parents say, like, gee, you know, are we ever going to find out like how much money Past Night raised or what they used the money for? Because, and parents have put in like tons of hours for these events and they don't know. So I think there's, and I think we agree. I think we all agree from what I'm hearing that there is an opportunity to do more, but it's a question of how much.
Yeah. I'm going to pass it over to Vince. He's had his hand up for a little while. Vince.
Thank you very much. Just wanted to talk a little bit from an elementary school perspective here. And what I'm hearing is a little bit of relational trust pieces, because everything we do at the school, along with the advisory parent council, it was done in collaboration, but ultimately when making decisions from the school, I do know that I believe the people in the building, the teachers, and through student voice, they know what they would like to spend money on. And of course, parents have their keen voice of what they'd like to do as well. But we, like, for example, this year, you know, we posted our SGF as according to our board policy. We were actually audited this year in full compliance. My council was asking a little bit more about money, and I kind of led a presentation. So to me, it sounds more like a relational piece than we're not following through, because we have many people in business services that make sure that I am fulfilling my role on my end as the school principal of how to allocate money. And we also have to realize too that you know, the money that we may have, or if we have incurred more balances than we normally have, is due to the last 2 or 3 years of being in a pandemic and not with the services we usually have had. So maybe that's why, Marie, you're seeing a little bit more balances of the ones that you're researching. But I do feel that it's like, again, I only speak to my school, but it is a relational piece. It's we're in full compliance, we follow through, and if there maybe a little bit more clarity, but I advise to or suggest that it not be more of a make work project for staff, because we are let's say, for example, this year, or maybe it's moving forward into the next couple of years, but it's at a rapid pace. The expectations from the Ministry of Education that we have to fulfill, like you've talked about a couple tonight. We're planning for next year, the homework help, the trips, the tutoring. It's coming at us at a quite fast and furious pace. But what I do feel is that we're doing our best and we are in compliance. So it just seems like there's a piece that's missing, maybe, that people want to feel more in the know. But and that's something I work towards my council now after this year, because of the questions I was having. I'm going to put it in my mid-year council meeting to review the role of the principal in expenditures, the role of the school secretary as what she does with that, alongside with me, the role of the parent council when it comes to spending money at my school, and make sure that if it's again a relational thing and there's more, it's more of an educational piece of what it has. But everything I took from that was in PowerPoint presentations shared with me that I was like a student of at the time and being a part of. And then I would basically took that PowerPoint presentation, replicated, and handed it over to and led it with my Catholic school council. So that's what I wanted to say with that. I just hope that where I'm going with this is understood, and I think that we have so many safeguards in place that we are doing a lot of good things, and that if we did talk a little bit more on those conversational pieces of where we're spending money and what we're doing, and we felt a little bit closer, and maybe we will eventually, that something like this will be less questions with.
Thanks, Vince. I know from my perspective, I'm not concerned that things aren't being followed, but it's more of a communication piece, because as a council member, I feel like I know, at least at the elementary level, where the money's being spent, but that's not always what's communicated on the school website, for example. So I think that's what Maria was getting at. But Maria, correct me if I'm wrong. At the high school level, I know, because there are so many line items and it's so much money. I feel like at the council level, we kind of go into detail maybe with the student activity fee, but not necessarily the other line items. And I know for a fact that that detail is not what's shared on our school website. Maria?
Yeah, I would I would agree, and I don't know if it's an issue of time or because it's been a few years since I've been at the elementary level, but I agree with a lot of what you're saying, that yeah, sometimes the information is available to council, but not to the rest of the community. And that's why I stressed the piece about council is really to support the whole community. And I've actually had council members say things like, well, if they want to know, they should be on council. And I've actually had an administrator make comments like that. And I don't think that's right. I think, council supports the community, just like CPIC supports all the school councils, right? We're not just here for ourselves. And yeah, but definitely there's less detail at the high school level, even in terms of what's being shared with council. So I would agree with those points. And I agree with a lot, Vince, with what you said as well. I think just one thing I wanted to offer in terms of like a make work project, parents can help with this too. And again, in my early days, and things have changed, and I don't know why, but in the earlier years when I was treasurer, I would get the reports, like the general ledger reports, and I would use them, and I would, I didn't report on every transaction, but I would summarize them, and I would prepare a report for my council every meeting as to where we were at with all of our fundraising. And I loved doing it because it showed how we were, doing with our goals. So it is possible that parents could help with that role. I feel like there's a little less trust in sharing that information with parents now, and I don't know why that is. I mean, I know when I was doing it, I actually found some money that belonged to our school that nobody realized that had gone to another school. So I'm not sure why that seems to have changed, but I do think that, parent members of council could help with the reporting to ease some of that, the extra work that might come from more detailed reporting. So I just wanted to offer that as well.
Thanks, Maria. I want to suggest, given the interest of time, and I'm going to still allow anyone else who wants to talk to do so. But my recommendation would be for this piece, the financial reporting. I think we've had good discussion. I think I would like to suggest that we ask Nancy to maybe look into some of these ideas about perhaps revising the reporting template to provide a little more meaningful information and making sure that we're in compliance with all of the regulations and maybe reporting back to us. Vince, I see you have your hand up, and if anyone else after Vince wants to speak, and then Maria, maybe you can let me know if that addresses your concerns.
Thank you very much. And also too, I appreciate your viewpoints there, Maria, as well. But we also have to be very protective of the money that we have. And we've really moved to a cashless system of organizing and maintaining the money. And we have to be careful that who has it. And we used to physically count cash, but now it's pretty much entirely a cashless system. And one of my concerns about having too many or different people deal with the money is fraudulent activity with the money, and we definitely don't want to go there. So it's I think the transparency is key, is what I'm hearing, but I also think we have to keep in mind when handling large amount of school money that we do keep it very carefully controlled in a cashless environment.
Absolutely. Nancy?
Thanks, Jen. And it was a very good conversation tonight. And Maria, you've shared some really good points and things that I can take back to business services. Our business services department is all CPAs. Okay, so I think there's at least 8 of them that are CPAs that have been trained by Ministry of Education personnel. So some of them actually worked at the ministry in finance for school boards and for why we're at the point we are. So as we've moved over the years where we did have those 2 or 3 bank accounts, like that was a compliance thing that we had to get to one bank account. And it was overseen under the guidelines of how we have to audit and do things properly, okay? I value and appreciate there's some of our parents who are committed to this and have the time to do it. And there's others who may not feel as comfortable with it because they're not all accountants and don't do the work that way. Having said that, I'm going to take this feedback back because even this report that we present, okay, it's evolved. It wasn't the way it is, the way we see it today. It's evolved because it received feedback, okay? But you're right, and I can see because like even that, like Violetta put up St. Matthew's, it is a little bit easier in an elementary setting, how that's communicated. It gets bigger in the high school and you're talking about a larger amount of money. So there's definitely reflection on what we can bring back to business services, and I will come back to CPIC with that information, okay? Our goal is to make sure that we are transparent, okay? It's fundraising money, it's money parents have contributed to the school communities, but know that it's there, and the fact that we have so much money is there's even that caution not to overspend, okay? But like Jerry says, if we fundraised in a year, it's supposed to be expensed in the year with the goals that was intended for the fundraising. And we need to get tighter with that, specifically when you have large amounts at schools, okay? So thank you for that good conversation this evening.
Great. Is there anything else anyone wants to add before we wrap up this conversation? Okay. Thank you, everybody, for hanging in there and for contributing to the conversation. The last item on our agenda really is other business, future agenda items. Is there anything anybody wants to raise? Okay, seeing no hands, we'll move on to the closing prayer. Nancy, will you be leading us in the closing prayer?
Thanks, Jen. I think Vince has the prayer for tonight.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Vince.
No problem. Please join me in the sign of our faith. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. O God, the giver of every perfect gift, by the grace of baptism, you adopted us as your own and call us to your service. Strengthen us by your Holy Spirit to live the gospel we have embraced. Deliver us from self-seeking and cause us to work for the common good. Keep us loyal to Christ in all we set out to accomplish, that praise and glory may be yours alone. We ask this through our Lord Jesus Christ, your Son, who lives and reigns with you in the unity of the Holy Spirit, God, forever and ever. Amen. Saint Anne, pray for us. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Thank you very much, Vince. All right, our next CPIC meeting will be Monday, June the 20th. It'll be our last meeting for the school year. And we will see you all at Council of Chair meeting next Wednesday, May 25th at 7 o'clock. Good night.
Good night, everyone. Thank you.
Good night, everyone.